Welcome to the Dogger Pass podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom. And of course, with me as always is my co-host, Mike at Madlab MMA at the madlabmma.com, where you can find his stuff. And we are back, of course, after a nice week off. We're going to talk briefly about that last card because it was a good one. But we're back after a week off with MMA back in our lives, Mike. How are you feeling? I know that the card you did well. We'll get to that, sir. But how did the week off treat you, Mike?
It was good, man. It was good. I was relaxing, dude. I'll tell you, this was the first week that I actually said, you know what? I'm closing the laptop. I'm putting my phone down and I'm taking advantage of this because, we don't get many weeks like this where you got to remember football, basketball, all these sports have seasons. We don't have a fucking season. So I started to really dial in and say, when I have a week off, I'm actually taking that week off. So it was actually nice. And now getting back to the groove. I wish it was a little bit better card we were coming back to, but it's nice to be back and talk fights with you.
Yeah, same. And we'll get to the card offering. It is at least on the road. That's generally a good sign for both live fans and the effort that the matchmakers put in. But we are coming off arguably one of the better, cards of the year from a fan perspective. Like I didn't do well on it at all, even though our main and co-main picks are just still holding really strong, if I can say that about ourselves. But man, did I whiff overall, even though I came through strong with the Pantoja pick and analysis. And the analysis wasn't terrible in other places, but again, analysis ain't the same as picks, and it sure is shit ain't the same as bets. And I whiffed pretty bad, man. So I got to come clean there. It was a bad night here, but the good thing is we got two co-hosts. So if one of us do bad, hopefully one of us does good. And of course, that was the case with you again, Mike. But I don't want to step on your flowers. I'll let you hold them up for people to see. You had a pretty good night. It seems like, right?
Yeah, it would have been a monster night, dude, if one of those judges would have seen it differently for Royval. I don't know where 30-27 came into that was an amazing fight with Royval. I had 29-28 going the other way. I don't know where a judge saw 30-27, but that kind of blew up the one parlay that could have gave us like a 7-unit night. But we had a great night. We did well over 4 units. I had Dariush plus 116. I had a parlay with Delgado and Topuria plus 108. Then I had Topuria and Royval plus 3.5. That was the one that shit the bed. Pantoja and over 1.5 rounds at minus 155. And then boxing, we did Lurato and Tokkos over 10.5 at minus 125, 2 units to win 1.6. So went over 4 units. It was a good night. Like I said, you're not always going to get cards where we're going to have stacks of bets. But the good thing about what we do is over by my site is that we also integrate a lot of boxing. And in the boxing, believe it or not, we're hitting at a 68% clip. I did the math on it. We're doing a 68% clip, which is very good. If you guys know wagering, like 68% clip is a very high clip to hit. So because we won again, we're going to throw another promo for you guys. We have a lot of boxing this weekend. We have one of the biggest female fight card on Friday night. So it's a complete weekend of boxing and MMA. Taylor versus Serrano. If you guys don't know, it was fight of the year. These girls have fought 2 times before. I wouldn't consider this a rubber match just for the mere fact that Katie Taylor did win both of these fights, very controversially though. So they're running a third fight to see if, Serrano can grab one. Fight's definitely going to deliver, but the card under it's amazing as well. Then you have Shakur Stevenson fighting on Saturday night, Zepeda, and then obviously you got this UFC card. So we're going to have a packed a site over at the madlabmma.com. Come check us out. Madlab20 is the promo code. We'll give you $20 off your first month, and that gives you access to everything. So hopefully we keep this streak alive and we can keep running some promos.
That's awesome, man. You're right, dude. I didn't realize how much combat sports was actually going on this weekend. So make sure, you're following Mike, and he's over on the artist formerly known as Twitter, like I am over there at Madlab MMA, where you can get, the links to his site. And, he's good about posting his promos and stuff there. And we'll definitely give it a share out on the Dogger Pass handle if you want to follow at Dogger Pass on the artist there, formerly known as Twitter. Shout out to Dayton, by the way, throwing up the graphics there. He's got our back as usual. He's on the sticks instead for the man Jared, and so we're happy to have Dayton again. Thank you, sir. And yeah, we'll get to the Dogger Pass parlay payoff. Don't worry with that Dariush pick, but shouts on the Delgado one, even though I picked Delgado as well. I was not as bullish as you were, sir. So that was a nice cash there. I noticed you also got Peyton Talbot at a great price. Again, especially in hindsight, it was definitely Dogger Pass. I went with one of my prospects to watch there, Felipe Lima, who was doing better than he even thought he was doing. Unfortunately, he didn't believe in himself or his boxing and made some really weird choices in there. And I made the mistake of I was going to stay away despite the pick, but he was arguably up on everyone's card 10-9, and they put a plus 200 next to the minus 200 favorite after he won 10-9 in round one. So I don't know if I could beat myself up too hard for taking that shot, right? Like from a value, a mathematical, logic perspective, it all checks out. But that's the MMA betting game. It doesn't matter if you check all those boxes. That does not guarantee you a win. I fell into that trap. And, I should have stayed away from the over, with a guy like Hobo Cop. I mean, I found out after the fact, apparently, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but Hobo Cop, Gregory Rodriguez, apparently he was the stunt double for the Alpha Zombie in 28 years later. And my dumbass bet the over there, so I told you he's packing heat, folks. I even said in last week's breakdown, I'm like, this guy's packing heat. And sure enough, down goes Hermanson. Hopefully Hermanson.
Oh yeah, don't go bring in your girlfriend's wives or fiancés to see that movie unless you want to not pull your pants down for about a week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, me and Mike both definitely saw the movie under different circumstances, but there were certain things that stood out. And rounding it back to my payoff here to Mike for our first. By the way, this was our first head-to-head. I couldn't turn it down. It was, even though I wasn't too confident on the side, I was more just hoping my under would cash that I re-racked. It was a lesson for me, Mike, just because, not to get too woo-woo, but perhaps it was the universe was giving me a chance of the bad bet and bad pick. And what did I do? I went and re-racked it, right? And you don't always have to be a stubborn idiot, folks, I guess is the line there. I didn't feel great about it and I went with it anyways. And, that is my fault. So, I'm going to pay it off, but we're also going to turn it into a bit of a tribute here because I actually busted out the good stuff here. Last of my Nico whiskey, pure malt.
Nice.
Japanese, man. They make some really good whiskeys. This isn't too much of a smoky one. I really like the smoky ones. Feel free to hit us with your comments, by the way, on your favorite type of whiskey, especially Japanese whiskeys in the comments. Appreciate the likes and the positive comments. And, maybe even some extra nice messages this week would be helpful because aside from paying off the bet, for taking Moicano here. My week off was a pretty rough one, man. I was going to cut my hair. As you see, I didn't do that. I had all this stuff to-do list that was left over from whenever the last UFC free week was. But those of you who've been following me for a while, I have this weird, I'm very lucky. I'm very grateful. Don't get it wrong. But if you see the movie Meet the Parents, with Ben Stiller, I have that circumstantial luck, right? That kind of luck. And for some reason on UFC free weeks, maybe because I put too much emphasis on it, the universe is like, oh, not this week, motherfucker. But it really pulled out all the stops this week. And it started with one of my dogs being sick, really sick for the first time, my younger girl dog. And she pulled through. And then I feel like I remember preparing for my other dog's death. My best friend Benji Boy, he is the mascot on the Dogger Pass podcast. That beautiful boy you see, and part of the reason why shout out to Paul Shag and Cody and Pat Mayo obviously for this opportunity. But I was low key emotional in tears on the inside when Paul was like, "Dude, the dog is actually a real dog. It would feel weird to keep it on there." Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the dog's name now. I'm so sorry. And she's still alive, and it's Benjamin's age, 14 or 15. And I was like, I can use my dog, Benjamin, really? And I was so cool because I've been expecting him to pass. So I'm this will give him a chance to live on. And if he was going to have a last card, man, remember he was barking during our Du Bronx and Taporia breakdown, Mike? And
yeah,
I was he's a Du Bronx fan. And if there's any bigger dog and any bigger fighter I'm a fan of is Pantoja. So what a card for him to go out on, even though he's going to be on the, hopefully, for the foreseeable future and here on out, as long as can be. But it's not that he's not going to be on the banner. But, as far as the last card he was alive for was an awesome one. I'm sure you guys are dog people. I'm not going to drag this out. We'll get to the breakdown. But this really was my best friend. I'm going to be turning 40 next month. And dogs don't live long. And 14 years is a freaking great run. I have no complaints, believe me. But you think about it, 14 years is kind of like a third of my life, and I don't have kids, and I don't know if that's in the cards for me. So like Benjamin was like my boy. And he really was a super dog. Like for those of us, the little boys and all of us, which I imagine is our main, audience here. Like he was a super athlete, super smart, just a super loving dog, man. Like I know everybody says that about their own kid or their own dog, but like I guarantee everybody that met Benjamin loved him, man. And unless there was a German short hair pointer on the playing field, he was the fastest dog. He was like a Yoel Romero. Even to his last days, he could out wrestle, and he had the pit bull jaw, half pit bull, half boxer, brindle coat, white paws, socks. So we're going to be paying off the shot, but it'll also be a tribute shot here. And again, you guys can raise your proverbial glasses. Any love and messages and condolences are welcome in the comments. Bless the algo in a positive way, in a genuine way. But this one goes out to you, Benji boy. We will do a dog type of memorial play. Shout out to my guy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. He has the Link Memorial Dog of the Week. I'm gonna come up with something a little bit different. Maybe we'll bust it out with we'll have a Benji Dog of the Week or something, Mike. But what do you think about that to commemorate him as I put this one down?
Yeah, I think it's great. I wish I had an alcohol in my office to do this with you, but
cheers anyways, brother, from the air. And this one's for you. So
cheers.
It's not a shot. I'll be sipping on it. Too much for a shot, but all right, guys, we'll bring it up, and I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate. Is part of life, and what we can do. Another really good way to tribute to somebody is and celebrate. Not to celebrate like making some money. So let's try to make some money this week. Mike's already been doing it. I got to bounce back from last week. I got to bounce back in general. I mean, I'm very transparent with my record. I've not been doing good the last 2 years, like in or out of the game as far as losses, like people, animals, bets. It's not been good for your boy. I don't like to use the word do, but how about let's screw it. Let's get to work. We got UFC on ESPN 70, UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Teixeira, UFC Nashville. Of course, there is all types of naming conventions, Mike, as you are all too familiar with covering the sport for as long as I have, sir. But at the top of it, we got heavyweights, and even though it's almost needless, I agree with my guy Scott Fontana. Unless it's a top 5 heavyweight fight, all heavyweight matches should be one round. Therefore, null and voiding these main events. But we've got a main event anyways, of course. And they brought the Black Beast out for the money that they pay him. And
we got a bad connection with you, brother.
Sorry, whatever stars we got left. We got Derrick Lewis plus 255 as the underdog, minus 275 for Tallison Teixeira. Hopefully my connection is getting a little better. What do you got for this one, Mike?
Listen, I'm just going to say this about this fight. First of all, you guys can listen to 20-minute breakdowns, 30-minute breakdowns. You guys can do whatever you want to do. You can't break this fight down. I mean, there's very minimal ways you could break this fight down. I'm a realist. I'm not going to sit here and act smart and act like I'm giving you all these little nuggets and he's going to do this. And the fact of the matter is this is a heavyweight fight. Heavyweight fights are volatile, and there is no one more volatile than Derrick Lewis. So this is a situation where you could pick one side. You could pick the better fighter. You could pick, but with a Derrick Lewis fight, sometimes the better fighter doesn't always win. Just the way it is. I remember when he fought Alexander Volkov, and I know this is going back a little bit, but it's just a point I'm making where nobody picked Derrick Lewis. Everyone's like, he's too, Volkov's too long. He's too rangy. He's got good takedown defense. He moves well. He's not going to be able to get inside on him. And I was like, yeah, well, that is true. But at the end of the day, all it takes is one shot by Derrick Lewis. That's all it takes. So he's getting beat from pillar to post the entire fight. And then what happens? He gets caught with like 10 seconds left. One shot out like a light, done. So this is another situation where if we look at Tallison Teixeira, you're like, okay, well, this is a step up in competition for him. If you really look at it, Derrick Lewis has been in there with everybody. Should Teixeira win this fight? Yeah. How does he win this fight? Like a lot of people aren't talking about the how. They're just talking about, he's going to beat him. Derrick Lewis is weathered now. But the thing that gives him ultimate tool here is not only is he like nimble and fast and sharp for heavyweight, but he's got nasty body kicks. And the one thing that you could say with Derrick Lewis is when he folds, he's got a very tender midsection. That's the one thing with him. You can knock him out on the feet and you could drop him and he'll cower up and he'll kind of shell up and stuff like that. But when you get him to the body, when you hit him clean to the body, he seems to back up. And I think if Teixeira comes in with that game plan and says, look, I'm going to fight long and your legs are longer than your arms and I'm going to keep the range and I'm going to look to really tack his body a little bit with my kicks, even front kicks. whatever you want to throw, but just kind of work his body. Forget about his head. I think you can fold him, and I probably think you can fold him pretty early. The problem with it is if you watch him fight, though, he's very defensively irresponsible. When he comes into the phone booth, he's got his head on the center line. He's just slinging punches, and he's fast. It looks good, but like I said, Derrick Lewis isn't timing anything. He's just going to let his hands go when he feels like he's backed into a corner. And if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, you're going to fucking sleep. So I'm picking Teixeira here. I'm going to pick him to win this fight here, but I'm telling you right now, this is a total stay away spot. I am not going near this fight. I want nothing to do with this fight. I could totally see another situation where, Teixeira's working him from pillar to post, and then Derrick Lewis gets put in a corner and just lands a haymaker on him, and that's the end of the fight. So I'm staying away from the fight. I think it's too dangerous of a fight. Any Derrick Lewis fight is dangerous, but I'm going to take Teixeira because I think he's the rightful favorite in this fight.
All right. Well, regardless if we're on the same side or not, I feel like our air quote perfect, since we've been just me and you, Mike, are perfect picks on main events and meaningful co-main events in the pay-per-views, title fights as well, by the way. I feel like it comes to an end this week, and maybe it comes to an end prematurely because we were on the other side. Now, again, I'm not going to pretend that this is a fight that anybody should be confident on from a pick perspective. Forget betting, right? Although I might have placed a bet, but I'm just saying I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Mike said that, this is the way it's going to go. This is going to happen. It's heavyweight MMA and it's a Derrick Lewis fight. But here are some interesting tidbits from Derrick Lewis fights. Now, traditionally, unless you were a Daniel Cormier or a Sergey Spivak, who is really talented and just a head case, and the only other fighter you can still count on one hand to do this in style of remainders is Jailton Almeida. Outside of that, everybody who's tried to grapple Derrick Lewis, and Brian Stan pointed this out years ago, and it's held true years later for the most part, is that people that try to grapple him, that's the fight that Derrick Lewis wins because they grapple him so hard and they end up on the bottom because it's heavyweight and there's not much scrambling that happens. So when you slip, you just usually end up on bottom, whether you're grappling or kicking, which is an important point because I do agree with your kicking points. But sometimes, with these big, tall heavyweights, we saw with that Maurice Green guy and stuff where it's just like, dude, just walk toward them while they're kicking and they'll fall over. Like, you don't need takedowns at heavyweight. Like, if a guy is kicking, he's going to follow. Like, he's at heavyweight, he's just as, like, that is absolute great analysis, by the way. Spot on analysis, Mike, with the body kicks. But the funny thing with heavyweight, right, is like when you're kicking, and you're tall, like you're just as liable to hurt yourself, whether you're slipping on the floor or keeping that tall guy defense. With Tallison Teixeira is the poster child for tall guy defense. His head is always on center, something that I wrote up in my Contender Series review, and you still saw glimpses of it, even though fighters weren't able to capitalize it. And it's almost like he knew it. He's like, dude, I've been getting hit with counter right hands from southpaw and orthodox in and out of the UFC by these like lower level jobber type fighters that say what you will about Justin Tafa. He's got the one weapon that southpaw should never leave home without, and that's the counter right hook, the check hook, right? And he has that. And it was almost smart to share it because if you look at his last fight, he's actually feinting, whether he's throwing the body kicks or not that you're talking about. And again, he doesn't go to the body enough. He's way too much of a headhunter with his punches. The only thing he will go to the body with is the occasional teep or round kick, which I would hope that he leans heavy on, to your point, Mike, for this fight. But he was feinting and he was almost afraid to get in range, which was smart because it was like he knew what his weakness was. So he immediately shoots in on Tafa. And we don't see a submission. He only has one submission win, and it was early on in his career. But this guy trains with the Nogueira brothers, right? Minotauro, heavyweights. But I don't know how much like in-season heavyweights. It doesn't really look there's much big guys in his gym in Brazil, although he has the Minotauro tutelage. He actually has some grappling credentials. He's won some regional Brazilian grappling events. He does have a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So part of me wonders, does he fall into the trap here, Mike, and air quote, fight smart, right? Or get funneled by not being scared, like as a negative, like these fighters are scared. Like I'm not meaning, but realistically, fighters can get scared and funneled into a path that usually involves shooting. And if that is this guy's base, what if he tries to fight smart here and falls into that trap, ends up on bottom, trusting his jiu-jitsu against the most dangerous grounded pounder? And also, again, what if he doesn't fight smart and goes and fights like he's been fighting up until his last fight and leaves his head on center for a right hand that he's been getting clocked with from low-level guys from both
Does
stances.
it all the time, dude.
Right?
Does it all the time. He leaves it on the center line. And at the end of the day, to your point, which is right, you got to enter the fray with him. At some point, you're going to have to enter the fray with Derrick Lewis, and you got to do it at your own peril, dude.
And the dangerous thing about Lewis is you never know what his health or his motivation is. He's not shy about being like, I'm just a guy who comes in for a paycheck, right? That being said, when he is healthy, regardless of his motivation, you can't listen to his interviews because he just does misinformation, shit talk. But you look at his last fight, and you can't listen to this shit. Oh, Derrick Lewis is in the shape of his life. He's been looking the same shape forever now. Like it's not that.
Yeah.
It's how he's fighting. And he was, he's not some keen boxer, but he was showing more confidence and throwing 1-2s in the pocket and showing more spatial awareness, not freaking out, really keeping his eyes on center, his eyes open in exchanges, and really going for it, going for dirty boxing, a lot of collar ties, wrestling to turn.
He's got some
around.
Inside trips now.
Yep, yeah, and I think all those are going to be great for a tall guy who will crash the distance himself if Derrick Lewis doesn't decide to. And again, I'm biased, Mike. When I see guys, it doesn't matter what weight class they're in. When they are going first round finish, and they're going against a proven guy, and we haven't even got to see him against a can outside of the second round, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So I agree that Teixeira is the deserved favorite. I'm not surprised to see him favored. I also agree with you that we should stay away, but I will disagree that I'm not staying away. I'm actually going to pick Lewis, and I wasn't going to play him, but similar to probably the only other underdog I'm leaning toward. Just out of principle, because regardless of how much live you think they are in the matchup, by underdog archetype, we talk about underdog archetypes, guys you want to put your money on, right? If this gets close to plus 250 or another line gets close to plus 250, I'm firing. I saw Lewis at plus 240, and I just fired for a unit and a half. It's like it'll be my third.
You might as well just get Lewis by knockout at that point.
You might as well, but what if he, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, by the way, but this is the one fight I am. What if somebody likes to bet the decision and cash out big? Like I swear they did in that Jelton Almeida Derrick Lewis fight.
I'd be shocked if this
so
fight. I mean, listen,
that was so suspicious.
Yeah, I shouldn't even say that. I was just going to say I would be shocked, but then when you look at Francis, what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, this is heavyweight, UFC heavyweight in 2025, right? Like anything can happen, and it's usually bad.
Yeah.
So this is not what you should follow me on, folks. I'm actually the Lewis case.
Yeah, I'm being honest with you. This is a clear stay away. It's a clear stay away for me.
I don't blame you. That's the smart move. That is the smart move.
Maybe a Derrick Lewis fucking knockout shot might be, worth a little bit if you're up money going into the main event.
Yeah, or if you're a round robin player, right? Like if my other dog that I'm looking at, which we'll get to, folks, doesn't hit that number, it'll be in round robin territory where I can just throw them in the round robin. You know what I'm saying? And you don't really got to lose too much. It's just a bonus. If it hits, it hits. Like you said, it's not like you've got serious money riding on the fight. So it's just it's hopefully you've already made your money at the end of the card and you're just free rolling for fun at that point.
Yep, exactly.
All right, co-main event. Not much to say about that one, but we got Stephen Thompson here as a big underdog, plus 325. He faces Gabriel Bonfim, who's a minus 450 favorite. Totals for this one is set to 2.5 rounds over, plus 102, under 2.5, minus 132. So not a huge spread, but they are expecting to finish by the numbers. What are you expecting, Mike?
I just, this is hard for me because this is another fight where it's like, even if you're not picking the side, it's the value side. Like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's the value side on this. And it's just clear. If you know anything about MMA and you know anything about his career, you know that this is a guy who literally is a points fighter. This is what he was born and raised to do. He's got that hard shelled off bladed stance. He's wide stance, bouncing up and down. He's looking to score. He's not looking to really put it on you. He's just looking to score points. And if the knockout comes, the knockout comes. And if you look at some of his losses, if you look at his loss to Buckley, if you look at some of his losses to Pettis, he was winning all these fights. These fights. Then he ends up getting caught. Why is he getting caught now? Is it his chin? Is it he's not as durable? He's not as fast? No, I've seen a gradual increase of him trying to enter the void a little bit too much, which is completely out of his character. Usually when he's fighting and you wager him back, a couple of years ago, he's got that hop, he's stabbing you, he's poking you, he's prodding you. And then all of a sudden now it's like you got to bite your nails a bit. You're like, why is he going into the pocket? Why is he going to the pocket? He starts slinging leather. It's almost like he's like feeling his older man strength a little bit. And he's been getting himself into a little bit trouble doing that. But at the end of the day, when I look at this fight and I look at Gabriel Bonfim, I'm not super high on the Bonfim brothers, But I do see a clear path for him to win this fight. And the clear path for him to win this fight is get this fucking fight to the ground and make him work. Like, you don't want to be in open space with Wonder Boy. You don't want to get into a firefight with Wonder Boy. It doesn't matter that he's 42 or 43, whatever he is, 42, 43 years old. The fact of the matter is he's a marksman. He's been a marksman since he's 12 years old doing this style. You don't want to fight that style. You want to get inside. You want to take him down. And Bonfim has the ability to do that. The problem with that is he's got to figure him out. You got to figure all this out. You got to download all this data. You can't just rush into the pocket. You got to figure out, how am I going to get inside? How am I going to clear space? How am I going to enter the fray? It's a lot of data to download. I'm not sure if he's ready for that kind of download yet. I am picking him here, but I think that line is fucking insane to me. I don't understand it. Like, I don't get that line. I think he's getting really disrespected here. And I think it's because maybe, we've seen him knocked out now. We've seen he's 42 years old now. We've seen that he's taking a little time off. And I get all that. But at the end of the day, your style is your style is your style. And this is a guy who mastered this style. And to know that Bonfim still has to download that data for 15 minutes, it makes it a little dicey. So this is another fight. I would not put Bonfim in a parlay. I'm picking him here, but I would not tie him into anything. And I would not be shocked if Wonder Boy won like a split decision here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. I mean, anything from Wonder Boy split decision to a guillotine by Bonfim, wouldn't surprise me is the problem. And I'm a big Stephen Wonder Boy Thompson fan. I come from a similar sport karate base. Part of that karate wave in the 90s and into the 2000s is where I kind of fell off and started swimming toward the MMA. Like many people, but so I got a big soft spot for Stephen Thompson, his style. I love underdogs. From a stylistic perspective, we got the big cage, so we don't got to worry about the small cage to force any grappling things for Stephen Thompson's footwork. But the problem is, outside of the old adage, right, Mike, that applies for boxing as well. When you have speed and timing-based fighters, I can't remember how long Prince Nazim fought or how late into his career he fought, but when you have these and that's not a direct parallel to Stephen Thompson, obviously, but I'm just saying when you have, high footwork, high speed, high reactive styles, as you get older, that's the first thing to go. And, he's in the middle weight class, so it's not like he's in the lighter weight class where the fall off is much more drastic, but he's in an athletic weight class. Welterweight's a very, prestigious, long time martial arts weight class, right? And that stuff does fall off. And when you actually do look at the tape, when you are familiar with Stephen Thompson's style, that does hold true, man. His footwork is not as good as it was, Mike. From what I've seen, he's falling apart against the fence. He's getting caught. His lateral steps aren't as good. They're not as predictive and sharp. Where like the Johnny Hendricks fight, the Johnny Hendricks fight and like the Valentina Shevchenko versus Holly Holm fight back in the day were like two of my old school favorite breakdowns from the mixed martial analyst days, where it's like you could read the breakdown. And I could be like, it sounds like I wrote it after the fight. Like, not to toot my own horn, but like, that's how good the analysis was. And that Thompson, man, that I wrote about those days is long gone. That was over a decade ago, that fight I just referenced, or about a decade ago, 2016, the fight I just referenced. And it's fallen apart. And whether it's a guy who I'm high on, like a Shavkat Rakhmonov, or a guy I'm not as high on, right? And no disrespect, but we explained why with the Usman fight with Buckley. It didn't matter. Both those guys, whatever you think of their respective athleticism or ceilings, they were essentially, now Thompson was doing better against Buckley than he was against Rakhmonov per se for the finish, but both guys were not doing good as they and many expected them to do. And they were both in that position where they kind of had to just ugly and push through, right? And usually that's not good when you force things, right? Whether it's a boxing or MMA, but if you look to your point, Mike, you were saying like, yeah, he was winning, but it was at the point where guys were getting desperate and forcing things, those low percentage moments, they've almost been turning into high percentage moments against Stephen Thompson to your point. And I think it's because the footwork, the speed, and the reactions are all falling apart. So as much as I want to find reasons to back the dog, and as much as I will be staying away from the favorite, I don't disagree with the favorite, and I got to pick Bonfim for my official pick here, Mike.
Yeah. All right, so we're on the same page with that. But like I said, this is another fight. This is another fight that if you were going to find something, I think I got a little something for our parlay for this fight.
What's up?
It's not on the Bonfim side. We'll talk about it when we get there. Okay. I still want to see. I just kind of accumulated this now.
And two things before I forget. One, by the way, Derrick Lewis, he's fought fighters that are 6'7" 3 times in his career, or higher, knocked them all
And he
out.
won all of
But
them.
he
There you
had
go.
to back to your point. Travis Brown was one of them who hurt him with the body kicks. To your point, and Volkov's front teeps were hurting him until he got that knockout. Right. But I want to say this, and there's not many fights. The problem is, I don't want to bump my chest too hard because honestly, there's not a lot of fights I see going to. I'm pretty much betting or tempted to bet every over I see. But I feel like it's gonna be one of those cards where like, oh, you talk shit on the UFC. Look, we got all these finishes, but it's like not really meaningful fights, but we get a lot of action. I think we're gonna be in for one of those nights. So I don't know how many fights are going to decision, but I always say this, Mike, when we go to the smaller regional markets, Nashville is one of them. I said it in previous Nashville shows. As bad as I've been doing, I've done really good on these Nashville shows for whatever, in these smaller markets. And a lot of times I bet the split decisions because they will mix, especially in the prelims. More so, they're more ripe because that's where they will mix more of their local judges in, and that's where you get the 30-27s going the other way. Those split decisions. Like these are the
Yeah.
cards. So if you have
Yep.
houses that offer split props, and Mike mentioned before, like there's a decent chance this fight goes to the decision regardless of who you like. Like this would be a fight where like if you're unsure, maybe target the split or maybe target whatever Mike's got cooking for us. We'll get to that later, folks. Tease. All right, next fight we got Calvin Kattar plus 105 versus Steve Mean Machine, or as I call him. If you look at that Tapology photo of his, the Cream Machine, he looks like he's in the middle of something. Minus 125. Violence for the totals because they're setting it at 1.5 rounds. That being said, the over 1.5 is minus 160, with the under 1.5 plus 130. I'm guessing that's due to Kattar's traditional durability when you look at his record. But what do you make of the lines here? What side do you find yourself falling on for this one, Mike?
This I go back to just my history of the sports of like the sport of boxing and MMA. And I my grandfather used to always tell me this. My father used to tell me this too. My grandfather used to really embed it into my mind, and he used to just talk to me about fights, and he used to go through the resumes of fights, and he used to point out when fighters would fall off and why they would fall off. And a big majority of the times when he would sit me down and he would go through these records, you actually, there was a fighter in MMA that he didn't know because he was more boxing, but Henan Barao, similar situation,
Yeah.
a fall from grace that not many people can even fathom. There's always one fight in your career that there could be multiple, but there's always that one fight where you leave a humongous part of yourself inside the ring or the cage that you just never get back. And for Calvin Kattar, that it was that Max Holloway fight. When Max Holloway landed 445 significant strikes in that fight, he gave Kattar an absolute beating, not a clinic. I mean, a beating, a night that he left a huge part of himself in that cage that night. That was, and I even said it. I was like, this is one of those fights my grandfather was talking about. Like he's going to leave that cage, but there's a huge part of him that ain't walking out of that cage. And it stood to be true. He came back. He beat Giga. He lost to Josh Emmett, lost to Arnold Allen, lost to Aljamain Sterling, lost to Yusuf. So he technically lost four. He lost four of his last five after that loss. Mind you, the competition was extremely high level. Can't hang your head on any of these fighters. But the fact of the matter is he did not look good against Yusuf Zalal. He felt, it looked like he ran out of options. Like Yusuf Zalal was dictating things on the feet where people thought, well, maybe, if it stays on the feet, this is where Kattar could shine a little bit. And no, he was frustrated, hunting him down, crossing his feet. Like even his technical boxing wasn't like looking as good as it usually looks. Like you could just see he was in shape. He was ready to go. His durability is fantastic, but you could just see like something wasn't right with him. Like it was just a style that he couldn't match. So then I said, oh, well, how does Yusuf Zalal fight? He's a switch fighter, right? We all know he's a switch fighter, but so he'll switch on from southpaw, switch off to orthodox, whatever's working for him, he's going to stay there. So I started doing a little digging. I said, well, how many southpaws has he fought, Kattar? Outside of a switch fighter, he's only fought one since he's been in the UFC, and that was Arnold Allen, and he lost that fight. Steve Garcia is a southpaw. I'm not high on Steve Garcia. I still think he's fighting way above his like who he really is as a fighter. I think he can be dropped. I think he can be hurt. I think this is a huge step up in competition for him. But at the end of the day, I find it hard to back Kattar right now. Like after just the wars he's been in, the just him not being himself after the Max Holloway fight. There's something to be said about momentum. There's something to be said about this kid's power. You know, and mind you, yeah, he doesn't go deep. He hasn't shown us that he's been in these crazy wars yet and stuff like that. But that's a good thing. I mean, like, we always started about Mayweather. Mayweather always used to say, you know, getting hit isn't cool. You know, so this kid has fought pretty clean and he's on momentum and he's got good power, and just something tells me that he's going to be a little too much for Kattar here. And I think Kattar's the better fighter, but this is just a pure situation of sometimes a better fighter doesn't always win. Sometimes. So I'm going to go with Garcia here.
Yeah, no, great shout. Yep, Kattar is your stats, of course, match mine, Mike. I would expect nothing less. Kattar 0-1 against UFC level southpaws. I went back to watch the Giga fight more, and which I did a lot before the Allen fight. So I went back to read my notes, which again, you guys can always use the same notes that I do. That's the great thing about these breakdowns is there are some useful things in there. Whether it's someone coming off the Contender Series, type in Dan Tom fighter grading the winners, MMA Junkie, it'll come up. Or type in Calvin Kattar breakdown MMA Junkie for the in-depths. If I've done an in-depth, if they've been in a main or co-main event, that's a good telltale that I've done some write-ups and I've got some stats out there for you. And it really is the left hand and the left kick, the classic southpaw weapons that Kattar seems to be blind of. The left hands pierce through his traditional high guard that he is accustomed, that it's burnt into his body. People forget Kattar had like a whole regional career before he even got to the UFC, right? Like that Max Holloway fight was him overachieving, was him at his apex. That was his title fight, you know, so to speak. And then for that to happen of that fight, like regardless of the results of that fight, it would have already been natural for Kattar to kind of start going downhill after that, right? But to add on to Mike's point and what he said, it wasn't just another fight, win or lose. It was a career changing loss, of what we like to call, right, a potential career altering loss. And you just see the problem there with the southpaws. His jab is not as prevalent. And even though body work, because to Mike's point, you know, and Steve Garcia, by the way, he was, and perhaps this is fueling it, you know, if I like with the Felipe Lima, even if it's a close fight, and I respect Talbot a lot, and I wasn't disrespecting him for what it's worth, even though I didn't pick him. But yeah, I'll be honest, like I'm like, if it's a close, if it's close, or if I have legitimate reasons, which I did both for what it's worth, yes, that bias of, well, if I pick them to be my top, you know, prospects of this year, am I gonna cut loose of them now? You know, am I gonna jump ship now? What kind of a supporter would I be? You know, so to speak. And the awards changed for MMA Junkie, but I was in charge of Under the Radar Fighter for 2024, and I actually gave it to Steve Garcia, Mike. And I'm not a big Steve Garcia fan by any means, right? But like everything, I always check whatever personal biases I have at the door as best I can, and try to break down the action for what it is, right? And the guy is on a 5-fight winning streak. He's tied for the 4th consecutive knockouts in UFC history. Plus, even with his hiatus, I believe still has the #1 active knockout streak, irregardless of division. And I know, again, he hasn't been facing the toughest competition. This is a step up, but I don't know how much of a step up it is. I mean, again, Calvin Kattar has been kind of, even in his heyday, you could argue a bit one-dimensional. Steve Garcia can be hurt, but that is mainly to the body, kind of similar to Mike's note about Derrick Lewis. And Kattar does not go to the body a ton. He has underrated elbows, but if you are going to say, if anybody's got better elbows than him, or even I dare say, if you had to say who's got the best elbows at featherweight, I mean, look at Steve Garcia's recent elbow finishes, how freaking brutal they've been. He's been literally executing dudes with elbows in there. Hellacious ground and pound in the clinch, in the in-between transitions, standing up and standing, like multiple phases. This guy's throwing hardwired to throw elbows. So, and he's bigger, younger. So I don't think he's going to be outgunned even in the strong ranges of Calvin Kattar. And I was actually surprised, especially with, you know, this is the most ageist sport. You know, I always joke about MMA gamblers being very similar to Jerry Sandusky with their proclivities. My goodness, are they ageist? But all serious aside, I was surprised that this line actually wasn't wider, despite being a guy who's respect the proven product, respect the veterans. I love the old guys that dog money. Even me, I was a bit surprised, Mike. So even though I'm stupid for playing Derrick Lewis, I will say I have 3 what are probably going to be my main players on the board, folks. For what it's worth, in my defense, the Derrick Lewis was the smallest one. This is the biggest one, though, Mike. Call me crazy, but I got 2 units at -120, which I thought was a great number. CLV be damned. It's about winning, but I think I'll be beating the closing line for what it is now and what it opened at. We'll see where it settles, but minus 120 is a damn good number. That's close enough to even money for me. I laid 2 units on it, Mike. Am I crazy?
No, you're not at all. I was actually going to say, I was going to make a bold proclamation and say that Garcia gets this done inside the distance.
Yeah, it could too. Absolutely. Which is crazy to say because Kattar has an early Elite XC. By this is how long this guy's been fighting. He was on an Elite XC card, by the way, if you're going to go fish for one of his stoppage losses via submission. And then, of course, the other was an injury. But I think it could happen too. That being said, if they're going to give me close to even money, I'm not even going to get cute. I'm not going to get greedy, Mike. I'm just going to lay the money line and not look back.
Yeah, because it's only plus 165. It's not even worth it.
Yeah, hopefully, and this is why I hate bidding against age, because I'm like, every time I am on the side of freaking, I'm going to be like the MMA gamblers and disrespect the old guy, it blows up in my face, so we'll see if that jinx continues, or, God forbid, some things might actually break my way, God forbid, but that's what I'm on for this one. Anything else to say before we move on?
This is the week for you, pal. This is the week for you.
Let's go. I was going to say we're going to blow through the rest of this card really fast, but actually, like, one of the best fights is next, and then we'll probably blow through this really fast.
There's a reason you come to the Dogger Pass podcast for your UFC picks, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has been fighting for the people just like you and I. They have over 100 offices and more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide. When hiring Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring an army that's got your back. If you're injured by the negligence of another, you deserve to be paid. When you hire the wrong law firm, you might be beat before you start. All law firms are not the same. If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/doggerpass or dial pound law, pound 529 from your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/doggerpass or pound law, pound 529 from your cell. This is a paid advertisement.
We've got Morgan Charriere, the last pirate, at minus one. Let me see this line here. We got minus 125 plus 130. Is that correct? I'm just going to double check that. As far
it's plus 220 for Landwehr and plus 270 for and minus 270 for Charriere.
Yeah, minus 270 for Charriere, plus 220 for Nate Landwehr. Yeah. That makes a little more sense. And it opened a little closer, I guess. Minus 230 was the opener for Charriere. I don't disagree with who the favorite is here, but I'm really curious on what your take on this fight is, Mike.
Yeah, man, I'm psyched for this fight. Nate the Train in the UFC. This is a guy who I couldn't stand, bro. When he first came out, when he had the long hair. Yeah, I used to call him the cousin of no, what is his name? The other fighter, something Knight. Jason Knight.
Yeah.
I was like, he could be like the cousin of Jason Knight. Just like, I don't know, there was something about him when he had the long hair. And I was like, I don't like this guy. Bro, he grew on me so much, dude. Like, I like this guy. I like the way he talks. I like the whole thing, Nate to train in the UFC. Like, I just like him. I think he's a cool guy. I actually did an interview with him last year, and I got to like actually talk to him. And he's a super, super nice guy. Like, really into his life outside of fighting and stuff. Comes from humble beginnings and just a cool guy. But when I look at this fight and I look at who's the better fighter, it's kind of easy to see like, yeah, Morgan Charriere is the better fighter. He's more athletic, he's snappier, he's younger, he's sharper, he's well-rounded. But the one thing I will say about him, bro, is sometimes he just doesn't step on the gas enough. He'll keep it in second gear. He will fight down to your level or up to your level, and that's where it stays. And he will make rounds and much closer than they are from his lack of volume and from his lack of output. You can't do that with someone like Nate Landwehr, and you can't do that on Nate Landwehr's home soil, where he's fighting in Tennessee, he's fighting at home. Close rounds might lean towards him a little bit. Like, Morgan's got to come in, and he can't do his normal shtick. Like, he's got to come in, he's got to put the foot on the gas, because one thing about Nate Landwehr, guys, if you guys are going to wager him, you're going to pick him to win, he's going to fight for your money, especially at home. He's going to fight for your money anywhere in the world. But when he's home in Tennessee, this dude is going to fight until he can't fight no more. So Morgan's going to have no choice. He's going to have an uptick. He's going to, because the later this fight goes, the heavier Nate starts coming on. As bizarre as it sounds, there's some fighters that do that. They need to get hit. They need to bleed a little bit before they start really coming on. That's what Nate Landwehr does. If you don't get him out of there, or if you're lacking volume, or you're just kind of playing the game with him, you're giving him every opportunity in the world to take over that fight and take it over quick. So I think they got it right as far as this side. I think Charriere should be favorite, but I'm telling you right now, I'm going fucking Nate Landwehr, dude. I think he's somehow going to pull this fight out.
I love it. I fucking love it. Yeah, let's go. All right. I think Nate Landwehr might have a Benji boy face next one by the end of this, Mike. I love this. So you are absolutely right. Like Morgan Charriere, shout out to the heavy hands guys for this term. They use the young veteran term like a Jorge Masvidal. These guys who are really young, they're talented. They're both talented, young, but they stepped on the scene young. So they're essentially like, they're fighting above their level, but at the same time, they're accruing a lot of split decisions and split decision losses coming on the wrong end more than often, right? Because, they are very comfortable with being in an exchange, which means, they'll get hit, but they'll counter or they'll work the body. And Mike, we talk about it all the time. I mean, I've been talking about it for years, and me and you are just so aligned that you immediately picked up what I was putting down coming from boxing, where it's like, yeah, boxing judges MMA. We only wish that were true, in the sense, not the corruption part, but in the sense of maybe they actually would understand body work and counters, right? And we'll talk about Chris Curtis, the king of that, later on this card. But Charriere, he will fight his opponent's fight, which is his problem, A. That's why he ends up in splits and close fights. And that always makes, even if you like the guy, that if we're being critical and honest, even if we like the guy, even if we agree that he's favored, and I agree, Charriere should be favored in this spot. Don't get it twisted, folks. But when you have that archetype, it makes you hard to trust from a gambling perspective, because now we're expected to not just pay chalk, but like over 2-1 chalk. And then let's say he beats Landwehr, because as much as we love Landwehr, and as much as I want to make the point that, like, yeah, he looked bad against Choi, but Choi is a guy, if you've been following his career, like, we've been waiting for that Choi for years. And say what you will about Choi, yeah, he can get into wars and be in close fights that he usually loses as well, right? But what Choi has that I would argue that Charriere doesn't, unless Charriere is facing an absolute can, is that Choi has that ability that if he's not in that crazy brawl where he can lose, he has that insane proprioception, knockout power, style, swagger, and ability to not make a fight look even close at all, right? And I can't say, as much as you like Charriere, I don't think you can really say that. Why? Because he body kicked Manolo Zucchini, or he knocked out a do or die guy named Gabriel Bonfim, where he's just like a Terrence McKinney, where you just got to survive to round 2, except worse than Terrence. And that's no disrespect to Gabriel or Terrence. That's just true. And even in that fight, he actually gave Gabriel Bonfim a bad position, because even though Charriere is an underrated wrestler and scrambler, folks, he tends to turtle to his base. So what does that give? It gives back takes, which he gave a very bad position that he got lucky. It was toward the end of the round that Gabriel Miranda got on him. That is Charriere, right? But what does the turtle position also open up? Not just your back, but your head for front headlocks. And even though Charriere is a bit of a insert Willem Dafoe meme, I'm a bit of a front headlock choke guy myself. We know for a fact that as much as Charriere has locked it up, who has more finishes? Who has shown to be able to insta-finish when you can't expect him to in a stylistic matchup, even when he's the lesser of the grappler in the UFC, on the UFC level? That is Nate Landwehr. Since the one thing, even though I don't like the outfighting of MMA Masters that he's doing, because Nate Landwehr has to get hit a bit, and I feel like they're trying to get him to fight technical, which is bad for a guy like Nate Landwehr. His jiu-jitsu has improved, and he's found a niche for that front headlock that is also going to be there. And you said Nate Landwehr gets better as the fight goes on. Well, I went to look at scorecards all the way back from 3 to 5 round fights in Morgan Charriere's Cage Warriors fights to his decisions, although they may be controversial. And I agree. I picked Mariscal. I didn't bet it, but I picked Mariscal, and I feel like you Morgan Charriere betters, I feel like you got a tough beat there. I don't know if it's all out robbery, but I feel for you guys. Absolutely. I thought he should have won that fight. But the point is, what rounds does Charriere lose, victory or defeat, or whether you think he should lose? It's toward the end. It's the third round. It's round 3, or even goes 4 and 5, which is irrelevant to this fight, granted. But he loses those rounds too when you go back and look at the fights in the scorecards. And to Mike's point, when does Nate Landwehr get better? It's round 3. So here's what I got, right? I said Nate Landwehr is one of the only other dogs, spoiler alert, I'm picking, right, Mike? And I said, I'm seeing him at plus 220, man. And I said, if he gets to like plus 235 or over, close to that plus 250, I feel like I got to play him out of principle. But if I don't, it's okay, folks, because his money line at over 2-1 is more than good enough for a round robin, as I've laid out my previous structures, whether you're 4-legging it or 5-legging it. So either way, I will have some exposure on the lone dog I'm picking. I am not confident in this pick. Charriere should be favored. However, the one money I am going to lay down, tell me what you think of this play, Mike, if this meets in the middle. Because we're picking Landwehr, but we're not denying he shouldn't be favored, right? So tell me what you think of this, Mike. Right. Points handicap. So long as he doesn't get finished, he might not win, he might not lose.
What, 3.5?
Handicap, yeah, it's minus 150.
Great.
I think, yeah,
no, it's not.
I just laid 1.5 on that.
Minus 120.
Oh, you better, yeah, you can probably get, wow. I get shit lines, folks, so don't listen to me. I always get bad lines with the houses that I can play.
Great bet.
But
because
minus 150 or lower, bet it.
If he goes down 2-0, but he's still in that fight, like, expect him to win round 3, unless he's getting beat into a fucking pulp.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that. I like that minus 3. I like that minus 3.5. The plus 3.5 actually.
And then if I do end up playing Landwehr, I'm not going to play him for more than a unit. So if he loses, but so long as he gets to the scorecards, I think I can still make it back with that points handicap and at least wash my hands and not take a loss.
I wonder what the split decision prop is.
That's another one. That's another one again, because
like not a winner, just a winning method. Like let me see.
Again, Nate's been finishing the first round, folks, so it could happen. But for what it's worth, Charriere doesn't throw many knees, and it's only knees that seem to be Landwehr's problem. Like, he's been finished by really bad fighters. So, like, don't get me wrong. He gets finished, and I eat shit on all this. Like, I'm not going to be surprised. I won't be crying or complaining, folks. But, again, I feel like it's live, man.
Yeah, it's definitely live. And they have this fight at minus 140 going to the card. So, bring me late Landwehr to the cards at home in a fight where he's probably going to eke out the third round and maybe have a close. That's to me, I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And if you play my style, folks, maybe you lay it on the points handicap and then you put like that decision prop that Mike just said in a round robin, so you have a potential to hit both. And if not, you cover for it with as long as the point handicap, the point spread hits. But yeah, all right, next fight. Those were the mainly good fights, so we'll push through fast on these ones. We got Vitor Petrino at a minus 700, if that doesn't say enough. He faces Austen Lane, the 120th pro football player. They put the MMA's Great White Hope in. They keep hoping these football players pan out. Austen Lane is plus 450 though, and the overs are set for 1.5 rounds, plus 130 for the over. Under 1.5 rounds, minus 160, which means they are expecting violence. What are you expecting here on this one, Mike?
Yeah, before I get into this, I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on Austen Lane, because I got to be honest with you, I actually respect him. It's not every day where you're getting an athlete that comes in from another sport and stuff like that has any kind of success at all in MMA. People think it's either you got that idiot that came over from WWE, looked like a punk. You got a CM Punk. There you go, look like a punk. You get a guy in Hardy, looked horrendous, and he's still getting knocked out on like regional stuff. The guy at least comes into the UFC and he's here. Like he's carved out a little spot for himself. It's not a good spot. It's not a great spot. It's not a spot that's going to get him a title shot, but he carved out a little spot for himself. And the whole Despain fight, I actually picked him against Despain. That's how horrible I thought Despain was, that I actually picked Austen Lane in that fight. So he's finding ways to like keep himself relevant on the roster. But at the end of the day, the UFC knows what he is. They know he's a big guy. He's got some athleticism, obviously, because he's a professional athlete. He's got some power. He can give you a little bit of trouble if you give him if you open up a big window and give him the opportunity. But this is a total get right spot for Petrino. This is exactly what this is. This is a spot where they're saying, look, like, here's a heavyweight. Here's a guy who, caused a little bit of waves with beating Despain. Yeah, he's got a loss since, but just get the name. Snatch the name. We're going to probably cut this guy anyway, put it on the record, get back, into our good graces, and let's move on from whatever happened in the past. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Petrino is going to just flatline Austen Lane at some point in this fight. So not a lot of analysis for this one. I don't think it needs it. I mean, if he goes into this fight and he goes to the cards, it's an epic failure for Petrino. He cannot allow this fight to go to the cards. If this fight goes to the cards, I consider it a loss. I would look at that as a loss. You need to go in here under 1.5 rounds and knock the fucking dirt off this guy. And if you don't, if you go into the third round or you go halfway into the third round, to me, it's considered a failure of a fight. So I'm going Petrino, within the first 2-round knockout.
Yeah, even though the betting line is stupid, that is the most likely outcome. He is obviously the deserved favorite, even though, again, the spread is stupid. This is heavyweight MMA, folks. But here's my thing, Mike. He's going to a new division and off 2 losses. And off 2 losses, maybe it's because I've been burnt for for stupidly betting the prop. The bet I hate the most in MMA, which is an under, right? I'm back on team fuck unders, back on team overs, got an over parlay. This isn't in it. However, I'm looking at the over on this fight. This is the other over I'm tempted as far as like a straight play, because you're getting plus money for this over. It's not super sexy. I would want something closer to like plus 150 or plus 160. I think the highest I've seen is plus 130 or plus 140. Plus 140 kind of tempting because, again, he's going to fight new weight class. He's coming off 2 losses. He doesn't want to make a stupid mistake. And even though I feel like ground and pound is where he could win, whether he goes for the takedown, I don't know if he's going to go for that. It's the big cage. So Austen Lane, who likes to move around, uses athleticism. He will have that option if he wants to stay safe from the explosive guy, right? Another athlete. And, the guillotine fear, maybe he's not going to be quick to shoot. However, I think Austen Lane is going to want to shoot. And whether he's successful, maybe he's good enough and big enough as a true heavyweight to, even if he's not successful, maybe he pushes him against the cage, right? And then with Petrino not trying to gas himself out for a late finish or give away another early finish like he did to Anthony Smith in his second to last fight, he plays it out and round 2 becomes your hot round, which I believe it is the hot round. The question is it the beginning of round 2 where we get the finish if there's no finish in round 1, or does this baby get over? I think it gets over. Will I play it? I don't know. I'm not excited about it. I probably shouldn't. I probably should stay away, so I probably will. But that is the one thing that is tickling me, if I got to say so, for anybody looking for degenerate angles for action on this fight. But no action for me as of yet, Mike.
Yeah, me too. Same thing.
All right, next fight, we got another big boys. Not quite as big, although might as well be heavyweight. Former heavyweight Junior Tafa dropping down to light heavyweight for the first time, minus 175 against Tuco Tokkos, who sounds like a Breaking Bad character, plus 145. Total rounds are set for 1.5 rounds, with the over 1.5 rounds plus 105, under 1.5 rounds minus 135. Any real opinions on this one, Mike?
He looks like a fucking bloated Zahabi in that picture, doesn't he?
He does. Oh, that's great.
So
he does.
I got nothing really to say about this fight. Listen, Junior Tafa, should he win this fight? Yes. Where does Tokkos win this fight? If he can get this fight to the ground. The one thing the Tafa brothers have shown is they have zero ability to just work their way out of like bad positions when they're off their feet. So that's the path here. I can't trust them. I mean, Tukos, to me, if he loses this fight, this is it. This is his swan song. And I think this is going to be a swan song. I don't like Junior Tafa. I don't think I've seen the quit string in him too. But at the end of the day, he is athletic. He does have some pop in his shot. He does move pretty well, bigger cage. There's no reason why he shouldn't win this fight. But I can't get behind either of these guys. Like, I'm going to pick Tafa. I'm going to pick that he can kind of elude, some of the shots that Tokkos takes, because, like I said, there's nothing good about him. But let me tell you something. If Tokkos gets him to the ground, then there could be a fucking issue here. But give me Tafa. It could be a super, super boring fight, or he can make kind of quick work out of it. But another fight, I'm just not going near.
I was hoping better odds for Tafa round 2, but especially, which I probably don't even play it. But a lot of times, especially if I think the round 2 is a hot round, but I'm also partial for a total either way, under or over. I like to bet that round in case because we've all been there, right, Mike, where you bet the over or the under, but you get screwed over by like a couple seconds or something, right? Like, if you think the fighter, if it's really a hot round, just play the round. So that way you have either coverage if it does end in that round, you don't hit your total, or God forbid you hit both and you're really living, right? But they're only giving you like plus 475 for Tafa in round 2. But I kind of like that because I think Tokkos, I don't know how much we can depend on him grappling or how effective he will be, but I got to imagine he tries to and kills some clock especially with Tafa in a new weight class. But Tafa looks like he's in shape from his Instagram. We'll see how that translates. I will pick Tafa, but it is not confident. And let's be honest, the smart move is to stay away. Next fight, I don't know if this will be a stay away. I'm real curious to hear. We just mentioned the guy. I'm obviously biased toward his style and him. He trains out of my backyard. That is Chris Curtis. A little surprised to see him in his welterweight debut, and minus 320 over Max Griffin, plus 250 coming back on Max as the dog. The over 2.5 rounds is minus 245 with the under 2.5, but plus 195. So they're thinking this one goes over. Do you agree with the totals? Whose favorite is a side and so forth, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the total. I definitely agree with the total for two reasons. One reason is Curtis is durable as shit, even though, yeah, he got, we've seen him get clipped. Kopylov clipped him, and, that's fine and good. But at the end of the day, listen, it happens to anybody. You know what I mean? Unless you're Canelo Alvarez and you've never even been dropped in your career. But which is a crazy stat if you think about it. Guys fought like 60-something fights. The guy's never been dropped. But, the guy's durable as shit. He's super durable. He's got super clean boxing. But he's also kind of sits back a little bit. He lets the fight kind of come to him, which I like. I personally like that. A lot of people don't like it. I get it. You guys want entertainment, and that's fine. But he fights very smart when it comes to his boxing. But sometimes he's a little too labored. Sometimes it's like, all right, yeah, I get what you're trying to do. I get you're trying to stay safe. I get you're trying to stay calculated and technical, but let's go. Like, give me something. And then on the other side, you got Max Griffin, who really likes to skirt the cage. Like when he gets into trouble or he feels like, he's getting, pursued, he starts laterally moving and skirting the cage and running on the warning track. And so I could see a situation where Curtis becomes frustrated with that, because Max Griffin does do that a lot. And Curtis has shown the ability to become frustrated with people who move around a little bit too much. He wants the guy to sit in the pocket, bite down on the mouthpiece, and go with him. Not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody that's smart's going to do that. I wouldn't do that with someone like Curtis. It could, because then you're going chin for chin, and I don't want to go chin for chin with a guy like Curtis. So good. And he's overall, the guy's got good takedown defense. The guy's just a good athlete. He's pretty intelligent from what I could see. His cage IQ, as far as his volume, is the thing that needs a little bit of work. But that's not that's not really a cage IQ thing. He should just know, like, I got to uptick. Because some of the fights that he loses, it's because of that. It's because, like, you got the last round ready to go. Like, it's right there for you. You just got to go and take it. And he doesn't go and take it. And then he'll be mad that he lost the decision. So that's the issue I do have with him. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to be the hunter. I think Max Griffin doesn't have the durability that he has. I like Max Griffin. I think Max Griffin's also a guy who I think in his career fought a little bit above his level. But I think Curtis has fought below his level, because I think Curtis probably could have been a lot better than he actually is and was, if he would have just pushed the pace a little bit more. So I'm going to pick him here. I don't like the odds in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to pick him here. I just think this is a spot that Max Griffin might have an issue with him when he's going to be being pursued a lot. And I think the optics are just going to look bad with the judges with him constantly on the warning track.
So it's funny. I don't like the odds either, but I think it's more out of a greedy betting standpoint, because I wouldn't line him that high even as a Chris Curtis lover, but given the logic of MMA gambling and what we normally see lined, I could justify it. Max Griffin is 1-2 against UFC level southpaws. Now, the only victory there is Tim Means. He lost to Colby Covington, and what was ironically is his only stoppage loss, and it's Colby Covington. You got to remember, it was an accumulation, a attritive one. It was a big card at UFC 202 that Max Griffin kind of jumped on last minute. So you want to cut him some slack there. However, that was a classic Tim Means fight where it was a wash Tim Means, but even a wash Tim Means, again, arguably won the fight. But again, Tim Means, like Chris Curtis and a lot of other fighters we've been talking about, it's not just me and my soapbox. I actually have the receipts and multiple examples. Don't have to look too far, folks. Fighters who counter and work the body get fucked by the judges. Again, look at Tim Means' record. And even though Mike was correct and that Chris Curtis could have been so much better if maybe fighters who move laterally didn't bother him so much and that he pushed the pace a little more, absolutely fair and correct criticisms. But even without those, you could still argue that Chris Curtis's record still should be way better than it is. God damn it. He beat Kelvin Gastelum, even if you want to count the stupid clash of heads. But yeah, Griffin could easily be 0-3 against UFC level lefties. And then you got the fact that Chris Curtis is back to his home division. You remember, he actually was welterweight for a while, but he got between, this crazy thing in the PFL where he loses a close fight, is heartbroken, goes and retires, and then gets called out to fight some Russian undefeated stud after he'd already retired and thought he was done for the night because of some weird circumstances of the tournament, and then suffers like one of the first knockouts of his career. And that's after one of the biggest screw jobs and one of the biggest screw job seasons of Dana White Contender Series. It was before Dana White was being Oprah with the contracts, and he screwed like a ton of good fighters this year. Julian Erosa knocked out at the time prospect Jamal Emmers. You had a Canadian kid who looked like the second coming of GSP. Granted, he didn't pan out as well, but he was one of the best fighters I ever saw in Contender Series at that point. Fucking jobbed. Chris Curtis gets a hook kick knockout. Come on, job. He lost his passion for welterweight, gets forced up at middleweight, and then ironically falls into some short notice fights and rides out a middleweight career. So, and I know you got, you longtime Dogger Pass listeners got a lot of background on this. Shout out to Cody Saftik, is a big Chris Curtis guy, knows a ton about him. So you guys already know his background, but I just point out the context to say that, this guy is way better than he is. So I could almost justify the -300 line. And I wanted to find something to parlay with it, Mike, but I couldn't find anything to even get close to the even money, much less plus money, right? This card is really hard to come by. And again, we got the judges. If I want to keep that same energy, if it's going to be split decision happy, well, that also means it's going to be fuckery happy, right? And who gets fuckery more than most? It's Chris Curtis. So maybe it's my PTSD for the bodywork and countering flag that I'm just waving over here in flames, Mike. But I ended up, for price's sake and perhaps being devil's advocate's sake, instead of the money line, I just went with the over, and I parlayed it with another over for near even money here. That's what I went with, Mike.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's good. I do think this fight goes over. And like I said, you said it perfectly. As far as Chris Curtis should really win this fight, he should probably look like a -250, -300 in this fight. But Chris Curtis does Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, sometimes, like I said, he just doesn't put his foot on the gas, and you're sitting at the TV going, bro, the round is in your fucking fingertips. Go.
Yep.
He doesn't go. It's almost like he feels like he deserves it. Because at the end of the fight, even if he loses, he goes on Twitter, he makes a big fucking stink about it. Do you know he actually blocked me?
Really?
Yeah, well, he blocked me on Twitter.
Yeah,
I had an exchange with him on Twitter because he was bitching and moaning about a loss, and I was actually very nice, but I gave him all the facts. I was like, bro, stop with this. If you want to win a decision, if you want to win a fight, either don't let it go to the judges or do more in the fight. Just stop with this nonsense. And we went back and forth for 15 minutes, bro. I wish I could still have the exchange back and forth, and then boom, then he blocked me, and I was like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, I think he's a passionate guy. He seems like a really good guy. Wears his heart on the sleeve, but like me, he probably he probably shouldn't be on social media. So
yeah, he blocked a lot of people. I heard
he does. And again, by the way, I 100% take your word for it and all that stuff. But I will say this,
and I like him.
No. But I will say this, and you've experienced this. And I've experienced this too, Mike, right? To smaller extents than these fighters do. But when you're a public figure of any experience, and whether you're sensitive or not, but especially if you're a sensitive guy, and I'm raising my hand here again, this isn't shitting on it. I'm just calling it like it is, right? Even the good messages, I'm sure, Mike, you probably came absolutely correct, and we're not a rude asshole, right? But
no, I was really polite
but because they hear so many responses. And this is something that we should all remember. And I try to tell people, both for my sake, and I try to remember myself when I get burned too, right? To keep that same energy. Is they're just so up on guard because they're so used to getting shit on that you don't even have to shit on these people. And they'll respond back to you fuck you, man. And you might not even have said anything bad, right? But it's because they're so used to being attacked.
Well, you know what, bro? You know what, though? That comes with the territory, dude.
Sure, absolutely. It does.
Just like when you're an actor and you're in the fucking street and, people paparazzi and you get these guys got the fuck nothing. This is your job. This is what you do.
Absolutely.
Listen, I get hate all the time. I get good messages. I get fucking people on Twitter sometimes messaging me bad shit. On this show, sometimes in the beginning, we were getting some negative message. I was blowing people fucking kisses. I was like, I'll fucking blow them a kiss. I don't care.
Yeah, no, totally.
So it's you're not affecting my day when my day is over and I'm home with my what do you think? I'm thinking about your fucking message. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's a part of the territory, bro. So I don't validate that as an excuse. You want to block me. But I mean, I don't know, dude. I guess I have different guts than people. Like as far as when it comes to, I don't let shit like that bother me. Like you could don't get within arm's reach of me. You get in with arm's reach of me, you're gonna get into a fist fight with me.
Right.
But if you want to talk shit from on the other side of Twitter or on YouTube, go ahead, because if you were ever in my face, you're not gonna do fucking nothing anyway. So that's why I look at it.
Sure.
You know,
and everybody's wired differently. That's why I was saying, like, when Chris, I don't know if he stuck to it, but when he said he's getting off social media, I'm like, good, man. And I'm not saying that to shit on him, but I'm just saying, like,
did he stay off? Has he been off?
He should not be. He's not the type of personality to. So I'm agreeing with you. Everybody's different personality types, and I'm just saying, like, yeah. And I'm not saying that to shit on him, because to be honest, I'm probably closer to the Chris Curtis boat myself, even though I handle myself maybe better. I don't know. You be the judge. But the point is, like, yeah, he's one of the personality types that should probably be off social media. I think we both can agree on that, and nothing personal against Chris there. All right, next fight we got. So I'm interested in this opinion, man. I don't want to bet this fight, but the way the line is moving, I believe it's moving closer than what it's listed here. But we got Chidi Njokuani minus 150. Jake Matthews, or as the Australians say, shout out to the PYM faithful, Jake Matthews is plus 125, Mike. The over is set for 2.5 rounds, over 2.5 rounds, minus 200, which makes this fight even greasier if it's going the distance with these two knuckleheads. Under 2.5 plus 160. I say it lovingly, knuckleheads. I love these fighters both differently, but I hate betting these fighters both for different reasons. Mike, where do you stand on this fight, bro?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Jake on by a thread with a certain narrative, and I don't know, maybe you agree with the narrative, maybe you don't, but I feel like the UFC has ruined a lot of careers with young fighters like Ricardo Ramos, Sage Northcutt. Like sometimes they bring these fighters in, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they bring them in super young and they give them just complete cans and groom them, almost like what they're doing with the Mexican kid now. But they have ruined some careers. Like, they bring Ricardo Ramos in super young. They kind of throw him to the wolves, and he's good, yeah, but he's damaged goods. Then they did it with Sage Northcutt, and they got rid of him. Super great athlete, a kid with a lot of potential, a lot of upside. He just needed some more molding and work to see, like, what do we have here? But him too, they kind of threw him in. And it's a shame too, because like then you get guys like fucking Mickey Gall and stuff like that. What the fuck was he even doing in the UFC? I mean, really, like think about that. So they had some kids that really had potential, but then you go the other route and you throw in like these guys that I don't even think Mickey Gall could win a fucking belt in a regional circuit match right now. And Jake Matthews, really, I'm being serious. I'm like, what the fuck is this kid in the UFC for? So then you got Jake Matthews, and this is a kid who kind of the same path, right? They brought him in super, super young, but he's been hanging on. Like he he loses some, he wins some, he shows some glimpses of high upside. Then he's like, well, maybe he's not the guy, but he's been hanging on. And this is a guy who still is super, super young. Still, I mean, not super young, but he's still very young for as long as he's been in the UFC. And my biggest gripe with him was, why won't he leave? Like, why won't he go out and branch off? Why won't he go out? And I get loyalty, and I understand with his father and everybody. Go out, man. Go out. Go to ATT. Go to get these looks from these different camps and these different fighters. And now he's doing that. He's doing that now. He finally broke, and now he's actually doing that. And he's actually looked pretty good. And I like Jake Matthews. I think Jake Matthews still has a shot here to make some waves in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight win streak. You got a guy who he's fighting who's a good name in Njokuani, who's on a run himself, beat DeSantos, beat Gooden, beat McKee. And this is the guy who had to save his career, because if you guys remember, he was on a 4-fight losing streak. Then he rebounded back, not with 1 win, but now he's on a 4-fight winning streak. So what a change for Chidi this is. But I think Jake Matthews is a really good price, right now, because I think that he's getting a little bit more intelligent. I think he's getting the looks that he needs. I think he's got the coaches telling him the right things. Like, look, you're fighting like in normal circumstances. A couple years ago, if it was like his normal camps and normal people, this kid would stand for 15 minutes and try to strike with Chidi. That's what would happen. That's what this fight would look like. this fight, I think if he's smart and he's with the right people and he's in the right camps, he's going to wrestle. He's going to utilize that to take Chidi down and utilize his grappling. At some time, you got to mature and you got to evolve. And I think this is the spot where we're going to see, did he evolve? Does he know how to blueprint? Does he know how to follow a game plan? And does he know what the game plan is? And I think if he does that, I think he wins this fight. And I understand that at the end of every round, it's bonus for Chidi because all fights start on the feet again. And I don't think that Jake Matthews is a better striker than Chidi at all. But I think if he uses that game plan to ground the fight, even if he grounds the fight every round and just secures top position and works his grappling and doesn't allow him up and just smothers him, I'll take that all day, at a dog price. I think he's worth the dog shot here. I really, really do. I think, but not to mention, you got to see Chidi's weight cut and stuff like that. But I do like Matthews here as a dog. He's one of the dogs on the cards that I think is super, super live.
I like that you said we got to see Chidi's weight cut because to me, that is the ultimate decider here. Maybe not for a pick. We got to have a pick for a show. And I'm actually leaning toward Chidi Njokuani. I'm actually leaning toward the other way. So I'm looking at it as we're running toward the end of the show here. But maybe we have the shot bet either on this or, God forbid, you want to do it on the main event to really cap off the fact that we're going to ruin our perfect.
I'll let you pick it this week. I'll let you pick what you want. This fight or that fight. I'll let you pick it.
I mean, neither one. To be fair, it is fair in the sense of neither one. Either of us would feel great about, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying
to look.
You know,
because this line is a lot closer. Let's do it for this fight.
Okay, let's do it for this fight because
so
I do like it because I'm double checking now because I feel like I agree with your points, but the thing is, I feel like I had that exact same analysis, maybe even like a couple fights ago, and we just haven't really been seeing Jake Matthews go to the wrestling or attempt takedowns. Maybe against Prado was a smaller stature guy, so he didn't feel like he needed to, right? Maybe Prado, he doesn't have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt or anything, but he made some underrated ground chops there, and not the easiest guy to take down. So okay, maybe you can forgive him, but it's been tough, man. I mean, against guys like Andre Fialho, or as I like to say, Andre Filaho, baby, Captain Filaho. I scored Jake Matthews there a round 2 finish. That was a nice cash. Like Jake Matthews has come through me before. I definitely feel you, Mike, but I kind of lost faith on him. And even though that should point me to the Chidi direction, I do like Chidi.
You lost faith in him totally?
Not totally, but I got way less faith in him than Chidi. But here's what worries me with Chidi is that, like, I've been trying to fade Chidi since he's been going back to 170 because I didn't think it was ever going to happen. I interviewed Chidi Njokuani back in 2019 on MMA Junkie Radio, and yet, how everybody talks about his Barry White voice, Mike? It wasn't always like that. You know how it happened? It's because he killed himself for these weight cuts to 170 that his voice permanently changed. Like, you hear about these irreparable changes from weight cuts, like he suffered it, and he was like, "No way, I'm ever going back." He's giant. I didn't even think he could make it back. Now, granted, he has the UFC PI. He looks like he's been coming in great shape. Even in social media, he doesn't look like he's like suffering. He looks happy, he's smiling. He looks pretty healthy for what it's worth, So maybe I need to lay off that narrative and not have it cost me money like it has been, Mike. Just blindly fading the weight cut guy since he has it underdialed. And I'm gonna go with Chidi here. And depending, we already got a bet on the fight with the drink, baby. But depending on how he looks at the weight cut, and if this line stays toward even, I feel like I might, not a huge bet, but I feel like I might lay a little bit just to get a unit back on him if he wins potentially. So let's lock it up.
Listen, I will not be, like I said, I have no faith in a lot of these fights, dude. A lot of these picks,
right.
But when on a card that's starving for dogs, for me personally, like I gotta take a stand somewhere. So I think Jake Matthews is live as anybody.
Also, I was on what's his name's Njokuani's Instagram, and he's got a thing like there's 4 LFA vets fighting, and it's Chris Curtis, Chidi Njokuani, Gabriel Bonfim, and Steve Garcia. We're aligned on 3 of the 4. I'm picking personally 4 of the 4 LFA fighters. So if you parlay all 4 of the LFA fighters, they're all favorites to win, by the way. In winnable match, not saying they will win, but they're favored to win and in winnable matches for my analysis is worth. It's almost 4-1 plus 391 if you parlay those 4 money lines together.
There you go.
Half a uni for a 2 uni return.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. We'll see if I pull the trigger on that.
That's a little fucking sushi boat for the win right there. Sunday sushi boat.
Yeah. I mean that'll definitely cover a play and a half to possibly 2 plays of mine, depending. I know I got a lot of 1.5ers and a 2 unit play on Garcia already on there, but if Garcia hits and the rest of those hit, it's a good night. So we'll see. Let's push through the rest of these fast, shall we? Not much to say about this one. We got Eduarda Moura minus 700 against a returning Lauren Murphy, who has not been on back since a really one-sided beating to Jessica Andrade over 2 years ago. She's plus 450 for the 41 or 42-year-old. Lucky Lauren. And Lauren's a sweetheart, by the way. But over 2.5 rounds, minus 285. Under 2.5 rounds, plus 255. I'll just keep it short and sweet. I don't disagree with who is favored, although the line is stupid. But as far as betting goes, I went ahead and grabbed that over, put it with that previously mentioned over of the Griffin and Curtis fight, and that equals minus 111. Close enough to even money for me. I put 1.66 U to get 1.5 U back. Where do you stand on this fight, Mike?
Yeah, listen, I'm going to say one thing about Lauren Murphy. First, I thought she fucking retired. She's been out of the game for, 3 years right now? And the thing about her, though, man, is I got to tell you, like, you guys got to understand certain fighters. Like, when you talk about timing, you're like, oh, the timing, and is they going to have their timing? And that all does play in. But Lauren Murphy was never really a timing fighter. Lauren Murphy was somebody who she fought so hard. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, she lost to Shevchenko and stuff like that. Like, there's certain people but she's a dog. Like, no matter what, no matter if she's coming back for money, no matter what she's coming back for, she's going to fight. She's going to get into a fist fight, and she's going to bleed, and she's going to fight until she can't fight no more. Now you got to ask yourself is, okay, we got all that. I know she's going to fight for my money, but is that going to be enough? And when your mind tells you that you can do something, sometimes your body says, fuck you. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm concerned with here. She's been out of the game for 3 years. And I know, listen, I do it because what happens is there's times where, like, I look at certain things. I'm like, dude, 5 years ago, I was fucking benching 500 pounds, or I was doing this, or I was doing that. I'll get under that right now and do it. And then, like, I'll get under, like, maybe 3/4 of the weight. I'm like, what the fuck? My elbows feel like they're going to snap. Really. And the same thing the same thing when I'm boxing, or the same thing when I'm grappling. Like, there's moves that I was able to do 5-6 years ago that, like, I'd be like, I see it with my eyes, and I go to do it, and I'm like, oh, my fucking back. Like, you just can't, your body just doesn't allow. Your brain says, yeah, remember this, let's go for it. And then your body says, fuck you. So that's what I'm concerned of with her, with the layoff. She looks like she's in fantastic shape, but aesthetic shape is different than your actual, physical athletic prowess. And I just think that Eduardo, as bad as she is, because I do not think she's a good fighter, I just think she's been more active. Like, she's the more active fighter. She's got more cage time in there as of right now. Like, listen, yeah, Lauren Murphy's got a lot of cage time, but she hasn't had any cage time in 3 years, like live cage time. It's a big difference. Sparring and going with fresh bodies in and out is 100% different than live time. So I don't know, man. Like, I think that price is absolutely maniacal, but I think Eduardo Moura deserves to be the favorite in this spot. But I'll be honest with you, bro, I would not be completely shocked. I wouldn't be shocked at all if, like, Lauren Murphy, like, eked out a split decision or something. But yeah, I'm going with Moura here. I think she's the rightful favorite.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Mora's game's probably better in the smaller cage as opposed to the bigger one. But yeah, I not enough to sway me the other side here. We got Kennedy Njokuhkwu. He's moved up to heavyweight as well. Minus 220 with Valter. I don't know why I was saying like he's like a German super soldier with the V in the name, but plus 180 with the comeback on Johnny Walker's brother, ? Over 2.5 rounds set at minus 105, under 2.5 rounds set at minus 125, which means they don't know where it's going, and they're giving respect to the potential heavyweight slot fest that this could turn into. But despite my love for overs, this isn't one of them. In fact, this is like the most stay away fight on the card for me. Perhaps it's because I barely looked into it, although I will have to look into it more because Njokuhkwu is a southpaw. That being said, going through Walter Walker's record right now, there are no notable southpaws, so we don't know how he does in the standing part. He's obviously more of a grappling fighter, and that could be his path to victory here, but it's in the big cage. Does he get it done as an underdog, or does Kenny Nunchucks roll as a favorite, Mike?
Yeah, well, I'll make this quick, bro. When you look at Walter Walker and you're like, oh wow, he's got 2 submissions in his last 2 fights. Yeah, look who they're against. They're against Tafa, who you can take him down like butter. Mays, you can take him down like butter. You know what I mean? So it's like both of those guys have no takedown defense. So you're looking at, you got to keep that in mind. Like, yeah, he submitted him and stuff, but look who he's doing it against. You know, the thing I look about Njokuhkwu real quick is this is what bothers me about Kennedy. He reminds me of that kid that you went to school with that has all the physical attributes in the world, but he was the one getting bullied on the playground. And it's been a historical thing with him because if you look, like when he goes into when he starts his fights, it almost looks like he's getting bullied in there. Like he's shy, he's kind of pawing at you, and then all of a sudden he goes back to his corner and he gets sick of being bullied and he flips a switch and he turns into a fucking different fighter and he finishes you. And that's a track record I've seen with Kennedy. Like not so much now. Like he's getting a little bit better with that. He's got a little. But like you gotta have a chip on your shoulder at some point. Like you can't just come into a fight all nice and creamy and fucking touching and poking and prodding and letting the guy kind of bully you, and then all of a sudden you get sick of it and you're like, all right, well now I'm gonna fight. Now I'm gonna hit the switch and I'm gonna start fighting. You can't fight like that. You can't fight like that. Like the one thing about him is sometimes I question his fucking chip. I question his hunger. I question that about him, and it sucks because the guy's got such good physical attributes. The guy can be, good if he had that like John Jones chip, that fucking attitude, that narcissistic attitude, something. He just doesn't have that. He's very like chill and laid back, and there's something to be said about that. But I think that this is a fight where he absolutely, if he comes in with some kind of chip, he should roll Walker. Like he really, really should. He should fucking roll this guy. And I'm hoping he does because I do like him. But like I said, it's going to really be predicated on, is he going to come in like that big kid on the schoolyard that gets bullied around? Because if he does that and he's hesitant, Walker will take him down and control top position. So he's got to make a statement quick. He's got to own the center of the cage and he's got to let loose some shots and let him know, like, you want to shoot in on me, you're going to get fucking tagged. So give me Kennedy, but like I said, it's all predicated on him.
Yeah, I mean, it could look like a easy parlay piece in hindsight with the numbers we're given. But that being said, I'm still willing to not be excited to go to the betting window for that fight and stand by that. Next fight, we got Mike Davis minus 1,100, Mitch Ramirez plus 650, over 2.5 plus 135, under 2.5 minus 165. I feel like the under might be sneaky there. Curious what the inside the distance line will be. It'll probably be chalked too much beyond belief given the minus 1,100 money line. However, do not be surprised to see cheeky submission props because Mike Davis has improved his grappling. And as normal, when you have this high stacked of lines, it almost funnels people to be degenerates, even if they aren't. We're like, well, maybe the submission's more lively. You start talking yourself into it. So there's going to be a little bit of that too. But that's basically what you're going to have to look at for this fight. My pick is Davis. What do you have on this one, Mike?
Yeah, same thing, man. Davis, listen, this is a guy who I really think has championship pedigree at the end of the day, but he's just not active enough, which sucks. If you watch him on the Contender Series against Sadiq Yusuff, it was one of the best fights I've seen. I mean, these guys were just, throwing ridiculous amounts of leather. And Mike Davis is a really good fighter. He didn't show it in his last fight. Something was wrong with him. I will stick by that, and I will stand by that. Something was wrong with him in that fight, and I think he's really chomping on the bit to get it back. And I think he's going to come in this fight, and he's going to literally run over Ramirez. So, give me Mike Davis. I think he's a solid lock for a cash game play in DraftKings, and I think you'd ride Mike Davis in your GPPs as well.
Yeah, and if they give me something to play with, which I'm not expecting with the minus 1,100, but if there's a decent line on Mike Davis round 2 or by sub, maybe that goes in my round robin for my style of play. But great shouts on the same game parlays and fantasy lines and whatnot. All right, lastly but not leastly, we got one of the fighters was on my same with Felipe Lima, featured that year for my prospects to watch list 2023, I believe. We got Fatima Klime minus 1,200, a bit of a rough start, tough matchup, short notice she came in on. She finds herself as a big favorite here against Melissa Martinez, who's a plus 700 underdog. The total, of course, is set for a 2.5 rounds as per usual, although the over is only at minus 142, as they are respecting the finish with the under 2.5 rounds at plus 112. Anything catch your eye on the totals? And I'm guessing you agree with the money line, Mike, or at least who's favored, maybe not the spread.
Yeah, I agree with the money line. I don't agree with the spread, but listen, I'm very well versed with Fatima Klein, a very good friend of mine. I was actually in his wedding.
Nice.
Dave Palladino does all her speed and conditioning. So I always talk to him. We talk like once a week just to catch up. He owns a beautiful facility in New Jersey called Impact Zone.
Nice.
And so she's one of his clients. And this is not a guy who's just a speed and conditioning coach. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a black belt in Shotokan karate. So he's also very well versed in the arts. And he just sings her praises. all the time. What a hard work ethic she has. Obviously, we know her branch where she comes from, Erin Blanchfield and stuff like that. And in female mixed martial arts, you kind of pick and choose your spots with finishes. The elitists, the Shevchenkos, the Nunez, you look for there. But usually at this level, you're like, it's probably going to the decision. Don't be shocked if Fatima Klime gets her out of there. So I'm going to go Fatima Klime inside the distance.
Nice. I like that. Okay. Curious what the line's going to be for that. I'm sure it'll be chalked up, but if it's like maybe still playable, because I think she does get a finish too. I'm going to check the one house that might have it, at least from my end. I got, again, terrible options here, and nothing is available yet. So I'm curious what they will line that at. All right, Mike, let's get to business here. So if we've been keeping track at home, there's only, if we wanted to have a Benji boy dog of the week, as far as just maybe a dog pick that we are consensus on, and, it doesn't mean, you have to play it, we have to play it, so to speak, but just for the show's record, that maybe this is our dog, our Benji boy dog of the week. I guess it has to be on the only dog we agreed on, which was Nate Landwehr is our only consensus dog, right?
Yep.
So I also assume that means we're probably going to put the Nate Landwehr money line in the dogger pass parlay, which I know is a risky leg, but we kind of have to, right? At
well,
least
what we can do, that doesn't have to be
True.
be our dog. We can actually take Landwehr plus 3.5 minus 120 and make that a leg.
That is true. That would be for a favorite leg though. So make sure that, unless there's favorites you like better. Otherwise, I'm down for that. I'm just saying, if there's any favorites that we feel stronger about, to put our little piece together. And of course, we can find a total. We can find a prop that's plus money. We don't have to, use a dog to Mike's point, to fill our plus money leg. So one minus leg, one plus leg from each of us. Mike, you won last week, man, and your legs have been coming in stronger, I believe. So what do you got? Go first, buddy.
I'm going to go for my favorite. I'm going to do under 2.5 in the Mike Davis Ramirez fight at minus 180.
Under 2.5. Okay. Davis.
And then for my dog, I'm going to go with Jake Matthews.
Okay. All right. For my side of it, let's go. Now it's like, do I want the minus 120 for Garcia money line, or do I want that points handicap for Nate? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm.
Well, you also said Petrino and Lane. You think's going over, didn't you?
That was an idea for the plus money angle, but I'm wondering what sounds better. Do we go Steve Garcia Mean Machine for the same price money line coverage, or do we go point spread coverage for Nate Landwehr for the same price?
Your call. I'm good. I'm game with both of them.
I
think Steve Garcia might be a little safer.
It makes more. I agree. And if it's the same price, that kind of makes the decision for us. So let's grab Garcia in that one. I like that, the over, and then we got.
But you got what is it over? You said.
The over for plus money, unless you can think of something better, Mike. I'm open to
it's minus money. The over Kattar fight. The Kattar fight, it's over 1.5. It's minus 154.
Oh no, I was talking about the over for the only other plus money I was thinking off the top of my head was which is not the strongest field, but I think it can hit, which is the over for the Lane and Petrino fight, over 1.5 at plus 140 or whatever you're seeing it at. Otherwise.
What is it at? Here it is, plus 135.
Yeah, otherwise there's not a lot of other plus money that I'm liking.
Let's go with Nate the Train, bro. Let's go fucking Nate the Train in the UFC.
Say fuck it though. All right, Nate the Train. We got Matthews. Let's get another dog in there. We get Nate in there. He is the dog of dogs, right? And we know he will fight for the money. Although I will say,
now we got one more.
Us putting Matthews, no, because it's Davis Ramirez under for minus money, Matthews for plus money, Garcia money line for minus money, and then Nate money line for plus money.
Oh,
right?
that's right.
But I will say,
yeah.
Since I technically picked Chidi, I wonder if I should throw a little bit on that LFA parlay as a hedge there in case that leak. Yeah. Or if it wins, then
we're sitting
I win either way.
With that 4-leg parlay, we're sitting at plus 1970.
Damn, for that one? All right. That's a really good number, man. You don't gotta again, you don't gotta put a lot on that, and I suggest you don't put a lot on these folks. These are long shot parlays that we're doing, and we're aiming for like we've been averaging what plus 15 to plus 2,000 odds. So at those numbers, folks, like please don't be putting anything serious. I'm doing it just for fun to follow along with the show and tracking it and tracking it on my own. But again, this isn't something you guys should be running to the bank. This is just for fun with the show. These are definitely long shots. And again, that might encourage me to play that little LFA parlay for plus almost 4-1 odds there. Again, you don't got to put much on that. And then that way, at least if it comes down to the Matthews line, you win either way, no matter who wins. You know what I'm saying? So just some food for thought there. Dog of the week, regardless, though, the Benji boy, tribute to my boy, Nate Landwehr. I mean, we got Pantoja card last week. Now I know he wasn't a dog, but he is a DA double G, right? And we got another DA double G in Nate. So shout out to the dogs out there. Mike, want to hit your promo?
You know what I just realized too?
Yeah.
You know what I just realized?
What's up?
Somebody's O has to go this week.
How so?
Somebody's O. The main event. We've both been on the same side of the main event every week. So somebody's O has to go this week. Somebody's going to be fucking living the undefeated life, and somebody's going to be defeated.
It almost feels like we should do the shot bet on that one instead of what do we have it for right now? It's for Matthews and Chidi.
All right, let's do it. Especially
because we put Matthews in the Dogger Pass parlay. Since he's in the Dogger Pass parlay, let's do the bet on the main event.
All right, we'll do it on the main event.
That's fun. Yeah,
it'll just be a sloppy fat fight. All right.
All
right, boys.
We're gonna celebrate the end of our main event winning streak in style, folks. Hopefully, we can all make money at the end of it, though, right, Mike?
Yeah. Of course.
And if they want to try to follow you in your money making efforts, which I suggest they do, where can they do that? You want to hit them with that promo before we go? One more time.
Yeah, you can go. You guys, like I said, we're doing because we're on the winning streak right now. So if we continue this, we will continue to do some promos. So this will give you $20 off the first month, which is pretty much half off. We cover boxing, huge boxing event this weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, plus the UFC. Good time to jump in. We do DFS, we do wagering. We got an awesome Discord, running 67% in boxing. Which is insane. So come on over and, get some, listen, we're not hot forever. This is a strange game that we play, but you jump on the train when it's hot and we'll see how long we can ride it out for.
My man Dayton, the Phantom back there, right on point as usual. Going to recap and then we'll get out of here, folks. Just to recap in case you missed, not enough shows do that, so we try to do that here. I'm a big fan of it. So we are split with the shot bet at the top of the card. I'm taking Derrick Lewis, the dog. Mike is taking Tallison Teixeira. Again, this is heavyweight MMA. Don't run to the bank regardless of who you agree on, folks. But it's fun. We're on opposite sides. We agree on Bonfim over Thompson. We agree on Cream Machine, Steve Garcia over Kattar. We surprisingly agree on our dog shot on Landwehr, who's the Benji boy dog of the week. We also agree on Petrino over Lane. We agree on Tafa versus Tokkos. Obviously not too confident on those, as a lot of these we'll get to. We do also agree on some Chris Curtis over Max Griffin, despite the price. We are split on Jake Matthews versus Chidi, but Jake Matthews is a live dog, so he makes it into our Dogger Pass parlay. And who knows, maybe we can do a little fun hedge on the side with the LFA parlay with Chidi on the other side for low numbers, of course, that won't offset our winnings, hopefully. And of course, we agree with Moura over Lauren Murphy. We agree with Kenny Nunchucks over Valter Vacher, although that's not a super confident fight. And we agree on Mike Davis over Mitch Ramirez, as well as the other big favorite, Fatima Klime over Melissa Martinez. Of course, that Dogger Pass parlay was David Ramirez under 2.5 for minus money. Matthews money line as a dog. Garcia money line as a favorite. And Nate money line as a dog for a total of what Mike tabulated as plus 1970. I'll probably be putting my normal $20 I don't want to see again on that shit. And I also got in my main parlay, which is Curtis Griffin over 2.5 with Murphy Moore over 2.5 for minus 111 at 1.66U. I foolishly took a shot and plugged my nose on Lewis plus 240, 1.5U. Cream Machine Garcia, biggest play for me, minus 122 units. Landwehr point spread 3.5 I put on here at minus 150 at 1.5 And as far as the round robins, what I'm targeting, of course, follow me at Dan Tom MMA on all social platforms. And before I post my usual fight day picks and plays thread on the artist formerly known as Twitter, it should be up even on a week like this where I'm struggling behind the scenes, folks, on my Substack at Dan Tom MMA. So if you want to see what I have locked in before it goes official, that being said, I will be looking at split decision props. I don't get them, unfortunately, for the women's fights, but I suggest you look for them there. Again, this is a regional scene here. Maybe I do a little cheeky Mike Davis sub or round 2, depending on what the number they put on there. Maybe I put a little bit on a Vitor Petrino round 2, especially, if I end up on the over in that fight stupidly. Maybe I put a little bit on Garcia Thompson split decision, which I'm curious, Mike, do you remember what the payoff prop you have for that before we get out of here? And maybe I throw a little bit of the Nate Landwehr if I money line in there if I don't end up on him. So that is what I'm targeting. Follow me at Dan Tom MMA. Mike, any last shouts for that last Thompson Bonfim before we get out of here?
I didn't see I didn't see it on here. I don't think it's up yet. I didn't see I did look for it when we were talking about it, but I didn't see it. So what I'll do is when I later on tonight or tomorrow when the show goes up, I'll post our parlay and then I'll do a little asterisk with that line if I can find it.
All right, folks. Well, you heard it here. We'll see you next week. Hopefully this was a good show for you. Not as tight as I thought it was going to be, but we still gave you some good analysis, gave you what I got. Hopefully you can understand what the week I've had. RIP to Benji Boy. Leave some love in the comments. Good luck on your picks and plays. Thank you to Dayton, and always protect your neck.
Oh, oh, oh. Oh.